Check, and welcome, fellow Tuffers, to Inside at Last, the one and only thief dedicated podcast. My name is Alex, and today I am joined by my Canadian and USA friends Jake and Seth, or Seth and Jake.
Heyo.
Hi.
So, who's the Canadian?
Who could it be?
I don't know.
You decide.
I don't care about the world. So our topic today is another original mission from Thief 2, which is Precious Cargo. And we will talk about this gem of a mission, best mission ever, as Nex would say. But before that, I just have to give you a piece of my mind, what's going on in my head during the day. Today I just thought about like how ignorant other language or people with other languages are to names from other languages. Like especially I think English talking countries, they're like, you say Volkswagen, is that right? Or Maybach, and ignore totally that it's like Volkswagen and Maybach. And then I thought about that, but of course we Germans aren't better, or many people. Like thief, of course, you normally would say thief if you just go by the letters. And then I recognized, wait, there's a word on German that is, you spell thief, and that means deep. So D-E-E-P, right? Like deep in the water or something. But then it occurred to me that there's a German word which is deep. So, and guess what deep means on English? Thief.
Guess what? Oh, what?
Yeah. So.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's reversed.
Mind blown. Of course, it's written differently. The deep on German is D-I-E-B, but you pronounce it, like it's deep, and then it's thief again, and it comes from thief, and it's amazing. Yeah, that's what I did while I was cooking.
That's funny.
Yeah, I thought so. Thank you. This the start of our amazing podcast. I hope everybody's fine. I hope the stream is fine from the audio quality. I tried to reduce my microphone sound a bit and push the others up. But yeah, guys, Precious Cargo. I have to tell, when after mission 10, the life of the party, I was like, oh no, next one is the lost city. But I totally forgot that there's a mission in between. And then I was relieved, like, okay, it's one mission more until we get there.
Little buffer zone.
Yeah. How do you like this mission? What's your opinion on it? Or maybe wait.
I have an opinion.
Wait. We totally forgot. I'm still on vacation mode. What is this mission about? Can someone tell me, please?
Precious Cargo is about Garrett getting information on the Cetus project. I think it's Victoria wants information on it, right?
Yep.
They already knew about Markham's Isle. That's revealed in the briefing. And then she sends Garrett to find a ledger with information on the project, which he's a little salty about.
Yeah, and then Garrett is taking his little boat, and he's just going over there to Markham's Isle. And
when did Garrett get a boat?
I think they are just there on the harbor, because in Thief 3, he's also using a little boat to go over to that other island.
That's what I'm thinking, though. He uses it more than once. I wonder if he keeps it.
I don't think so. In Witcher 3, there are always boats. I just played Far Cry today. There are boats everywhere.
Garrett's not above Grand Theft Boat.
He's a thief, so he doesn't care, actually. I think he's done worse. like kidnapping someone.
Hmm.
Yeah, so his goal is to get the information there, and does he? I think he discovers that it's already his goal, right? To kidnap Cavador, right?
No, I think he goes to find information and find out what Cavador is up to, and then he decides to kidnap Cavador afterwards, right?
Of
Or no, he
course,
finds out Cavador's not there.
yeah, of course I knew that because I played it yesterday, but I forgot. I'm totally not there with my mind.
It's just one of those missions. You play it and then it erases itself. You
I
forgot
don't,
it existed. You forgot what happened the day
nah,
after you play it.
actually not, because I remember as a child, this was one of the missions I spent most time in because I don't know, I really liked it, with the lighthouse and the fog and the whole atmosphere, especially of, yeah, I think we can start. You start in some sort of mines, I would say.
Yeah, the
Um,
drilling.
Because they're drilling.
yeah, and this was actually very impressive back in the days when this drill was standing there. Um, and I remember that we recognized it in one of the last contests because it was used in one of the missions, and it was like, hey, the drill was used again. I think it's an object you remember, or don't you?
I remember it. I remember being able to interact with it. That's for sure.
And
Yeah, the drill's so cool to interact with as like an object in the environment in this mission and in the fan mission.
And I'm always impressed. Like, the engine immediately starts. You just push the lever, and then there's no, it doesn't need to start slowly. No, it just goes straight and stops immediately as soon as you tell it to stop.
That's the magic of mechanist technology.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm really impressed. And to be honest, like for a drill like that, like this little, I don't know, this little caterpillar they are using. Actually, I don't think that it would balance out right. Like because the drill is really huge, and then the little car behind it is basically the same size, but I would say that the drill is really massive from its weight.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It would fall if it was a realistic object weighted realistically. It would fall over because it's too top heavy on one side.
How heavy is aluminum? Maybe they figured out aluminum.
Yeah, right. Aluminum, the most the hardest
Durable
steel. Yeah, right. Foil. They use just foil. And
titanium.
no, they will call it like buildium, or I don't know, kerosium.
Kerosinium.
Mechanium.
Yeah, mechanium. Right. No, that's oil. Mechanium is oil, and kerosinium is like the hardest thing. No, but then where's the engine in that thing? It's like like using a little e-scooter engine in there.
Maybe it doesn't use an engine at all.
What does it use? Willpower?
Special, like I don't know, like a special gravity thing.
What if Karis solved gravity? He just said, I solved gravity.
Hey, he's real smart, okay?
Yep.
He can make eyeballs.
That's actually true. And they work wireless, I think. Yeah, Garrett can take it out. And so he invented like it's not Bluetooth, but Blue Eye. I think I think I made that joke some while ago already.
It's still funny.
I know. No, but this. So you see, this is like the first thing you see, and it's really impressive. I think, and then I like the atmosphere because then you have this little shed with the pirate flag, which gives you an idea of maybe this place has some history.
Is it it's not the first mission where we see a pirate flag, is it?
I don't think. Oh, wasn't it already in Thief 1?
No, I don't think there was.
Thief Gold, maybe in one of the missions.
Maybe Thief Gold. It might have been in the Opera mission.
Yeah, or maybe in the Thief's Den.
Oh, it's in one of the guy's houses. Is it not? It's like in front of his vault or something.
Maybe Esamir or whatever. One of the guys will tell us. Shipping and
I hope
receiving.
so.
Oh yeah, Eminel just says in the chat that maybe shipping and receiving. That's oh yeah, of course, maybe on the ship.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that. Thank you, Eminel. Thanks for joining and thanks for this idea. But I think in Thief 1 there is already this another. But the nerds would tell us.
I want to know if someone mentions pirates by name before this mission.
Yeah, in shipping and receiving.
Yep.
They mention them for sure. Is Donald, or what's his name? Donald?
Davidson.
Davidson, thank you. And it was a D something. Is he a pirate?
I don't know. He's a smuggler. I think that's. But he's a criminal. He's a criminal captain. So I don't know. But I don't know. Is it called a pirate? That's a good question, actually.
Thief Wiki says he was. Captain Davidson was a sailor and captain of a sailing ship. Davidson was also a pirate and smuggler.
So yeah, but is it mentioned directly? But yeah, I think it's already mentioned somehow, or you maybe just get the idea because we're smart.
New headcanon: this was Davidson's house. Mechanist stole it from him.
Okay,
that'd actually be really interesting.
And isn't in Truard's mention? Isn't there in one of the houses at the beginning? Isn't there also a pirate flag or something?
That is a question I could not answer.
Trying to think back. There might be.
Yeah, I think it's very often used in comparison. Like, I don't know, because it's it's just a cool thing. Like teenagers or children have that on their wall, like, because it's just cool. And maybe back in the mid-age, whatever, it was a thing as well.
I feel very implicated because teenagers have actually literally had a Jolly Roger.
Ah, yeah. You are a pirate.
Yar har fiddle-dee-dee.
Yo ho ho. I think that's one of the most famous quotes from Garrett. And it's used very often in fan missions. I think every opportunity when there's some pirate or alcohol with seamen thing, then it's always used. But it's a great opportunity, so.
What do you guys think of having? I find it so interesting, like the factions that don't intersect necessarily with the main ones, so like pirates and the criminal gangs, which I think appear more in the first game. But what do you guys think of overall, like having kind of like pirates and thief and how that's kind of done, and the groups that operate like outside the established kind of factions?
I think it's cool. I like it. I think pirates is something every child, and especially every boy, grows up with, and it's part of your games you play. And I think, and they were actual pirates, and they weren't that cool, but I think they fit the theme of the Thief universe, in my opinion.
I agree on the theme, but I haven't seen an execution of a pirate mission I really enjoyed. Like right now, I'm having flashbacks to T2X. And the forced ghost mission where you go to the pirate's base and then you end up returning there later, so you have to deal with that location twice.
Are they pirates? They are smugglers.
Well, I mean, if Davidson is a pirate and also a smuggler, how come they can't be pirates and also smugglers?
They are not having a ship.
Well, how do they get back and forth between Sunnyport? Oh, they ride the train!
They ride the train, yes. Yeah, one element you can totally forgot about Thief 2X. It wasn't.
The train's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. I didn't forget.
No, they are smugglers, and they just operate in the city and between Sunnyport, I think it was called, right?
Sunnyport,
and the city.
World's most obvious smugglers. They walk around dressed like pirates. So I guess they're just cosplaying pirates.
That was actually a good design, but I remember other fan missions with pirates, and they looked like, I don't know, they try to mimic those that they don't have like swords, but they have how do you call them?
Like maces? Clubs?
No,
sabers. Cutlasses.
Sabers, right. Saber, right, of course. And then they have like really ugly textures, like they are walking around, I don't know, in yellow shirts with violet trousers, and then they have a stupid hat on.
Sounds about right. I think I remember what you're talking about.
I think Christine did one with pirates with an island, but I didn't like the design mostly. But so I think in Thief 2X, the design of the smugglers was actually good. I remember the one guy with the ponytail and the white shirt. He was very present.
Feels very swashbucklery. Very like Captain Blood.
Ah, yeah, Krabs and Christine's mission. Yeah, Christine had some interesting details. And you could always, if you didn't know, you could tell by playing Christine's mission, like, oh yeah, she's German. Just by the design of everything. And there are donuts all over the place. But back to Precious Cargo. So, this is the first thing you see, and then you go on. And I think this is the next, actually, very memorable place where you have to go up. And you can decide if you go up with the elevator. But of course, this brings the risk that you have no control over the speed of your progress of going up. And you can choose jumping and climbing over platforms and ropes. And this is actually the thievy way, I would say. But I have to say, and I remembered that back in the days when there was no, or maybe I wasn't clever enough, but I was trying to avoid climbing the ropes because I so often misjudged the jumping. So, I climbed up, and then maybe I missed the last rope, and then I fell down and died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You hadn't learned to save scum yet.
At that time I didn't know about the feature, actually.
I have quick save bound to my middle mouse button, so I never have to stop playing while I quick save.
Don't have to move your hand.
Yep.
That's so risky. You can click it very easily.
Well, I like to think I have control of my digits.
Yeah, and I know you just have 4 buttons on your keyboard, so yeah, it makes it easier, maybe.
Exactly. Gotta save every one.
Oh yeah, for like a miniature keyboard or a special keyboard. Yep.
It's a 40% mechanical keyboard, okay?
40%.
Jake, do you still use the normal Alt-S combination, or what do you use?
I do, yeah. I've never rebound, quick save, or quick load in Thief, but that's not necessarily. I like Alt S because kind of what you alluded to with kind of like Seth's quick save is like I won't accidentally bump Alt S. You know what I mean? That's such a deliberate, action that you have to make that you're never going to bump Alt S. But there's been numerous times in Thief the Dark Project / Thief Gold where, because I think the default in that game is what F9 or something like that. It's one of the F keys.
F10?
Yeah, F10, something
F10
like that.
F12.
So there's been times when I've meant to hit quick load and I hit quick save by accident. And then I realized and I'm like, I quick load and I'm getting killed. It's just a loop of me getting straight up murdered. So yeah, I actually do really like Alt S. And of course, I've also played System Shock 2, which is also the same. It's bound to the same thing. So yeah, I leave it as Alt S, but
only pagans use Alt S.
Nah.
What? No, I don't. No, I do actually. No, I think as Jake said, like it's like muscle memory actually, and it would never happen to me in another game that I would press this combination. It just automatically happens while playing Thief.
See, I find with the middle mouse, I don't hit it when I don't intend to. Like I've never accidentally done that. And I frequently will do like a backup save where I go through the menus and save a separate hard save. And that way, if I do it by accident, no big deal. But that's funny.
But back in the days, I didn't know about the quick save thing. So like every save, would take some work and put you out of the thing. So you wanted things to go more fluid your way. And so this jumping was always a mess for me. But on the other hand, it was an interesting challenge because I knew that this is the safer way.
The only thing I was going to say, the only thing, speaking of the ropes and kind of what you're speaking to, Alex, the only thing I think that kind of maybe is a little bit of the saving grace is that there is quite a few of them, and they're packed a little bit close together compared to some other missions where you have to work and like rope your way up, and you have like one or two ropes to rely on. Specifically, I'm thinking of like the Lost City from Thief Gold, where you have to like shoot that rope arrow into the ceiling and then shoot the other one when you have to like make that jump, and it's like your margin for error is so small. Whereas at least with this one, when you're climbing up, there's more than two. There's like several of them. So at least like you can kind of maybe if you take like a leap of faith or you miss your jump, sometimes you will accidentally like grab another one and kind of save yourself. That's maybe the only thing I think that keeps that from being like even more frustrating, in my opinion.
Yeah. On the other hand, you could say like maybe you choose the wrong rope.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
It's just a bad design thing. Of course, it wasn't my mistake. It was badly designed. That's the thing. And that is because now we can, replay. Yeah, they didn't have the time. They didn't have the money at the end. They already designed the levels before they put the story in there. All the same stuff. But I actually like this this choice and the way it's done, because there's a cool way, because there's a watcher and there's a cool way to put him out. On the other hand, it's totally illogical that there's a switch above the watcher. Like imagine like every time someone has to climb up there for maintenance.
Yep. And you think like there's a switch right on there's a console right there. Like why wouldn't you put like if you're designing a piece of electronic, you put all the switches like relatively close together. You'd put it on another console near the other console, rather than like, okay, we have a door, we have two door switches like against the wall on this computer or this console, and now we have the camera switch, which is like on a plank of wood, like overlooking the camera. Like,
but at the end of Thief, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money, and
of course,
no,
yeah, the usual.
No, I think, of course, it's. If I would be a mechanist, of course, I would not have the switch like that obviously placed next to the door mechanism.
That's what I was going to say.
Maybe I would have it behind that, in a secured area, But I think it's not a problem because they used some wires along the bank and stuff. So I think they're able to use some wires in those caverns there. Yeah, but I think it's very gamey just to put it up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good point, because like it's one of those things, like you're saying, it's very gamey, where it's like it is more satisfying from a gameplay standpoint to have it up there, because you have to like kind of climb up there and like risk exposure and risk making noise. But like if you had it in a more realistic location, it would be more pedestrian and more boring from a gameplay standpoint. So it's one of those things, like that's exactly right. Like it's very gamey. Like it makes for more fun and interesting game experience. But it's like if you think about it, you're like, this doesn't make sense, because like you said, Alex, like if they have to shut off the camera to do maintenance, they gotta like climb all the way up there and like hug on that plank of wood and like try not to fall and like pull the switch and stuff. So
the next time I see an obvious switch, I'm going to think of you, Jake, and I'm going to call it pedestrian.
It's a pedestrian switch.
Look at this pedestrian switch.
What it would have been a cool joke if there, like somewhere on one of those platforms, there would be, like a dead mechanist lying.
That would be great. That would be funny.
Who's fallen trying to flip the switch?
Yes, of course. Or maybe, yeah, that would be something I think fan mission authors would do. Like, there is the switch, but the switch is gone, because nowadays you have to pick it up somewhere. So then you see down there this dead guy, and of course he has the switch, but it's really hard to get there. That would be a fan mission design nowadays, I would say.
What if he had a journal too? Like there was a journal like up there.
The journals.
Like, I gotta climb all the way up here every single time to shut off this camera. Like just complaining about having to get up there and shut off the camera and like do maintenance. There's just like a journal up there.
And yeah, and then no, it lies next to him, and then like in other missions where it's like, oh, I hear noise behind me, and then there's just like standing in the diary, like, and it sees the same, like, oh, I'm up here right now. It's really hard to balance, but luckily I took my diary with me and right here on this beam, and then oh no, I slipped. Oh, I fall. Oh no, I fall really fast.
Be even funnier if it like had a page that was just like screaming. He wrote down his screams, and then the next page is like him dying slowly. He's just like recording all the symptoms of like having fallen off this wall until he dies.
No, I think it would be cooler if the next page just would say crack, and that's because I think he would. It would be a very fast death.
It's very Monty Python.
Oh, I was just some weeks ago. I was at a Monty Python theater show.
Ooh.
Here in Switzerland, which was amazing. Just where you're saying that was really, I'm very critical with stuff like that, but they totally nailed it. It was so impressive.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but just a little sidetrack here. But I think the whole area is cool, and it's it gives you some challenge. Of course, if you know what you're doing, it's pretty easy. But there's one moment where the female mechanist, she walks up there. No, the one is standing and the other one is walking. And there's one moment where she can see you on the platforms. So you have to be careful. But I don't like those blind spots where you cannot really see the enemy, but he can or she can see you. Then it's some trial and error. But in general, I think it's a nice starting area, the whole mine cave thing.
I really like it. I think that it feels like an improved Thief 1 mission, and I think that's why I like it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, some controversy here.
But it's a lot more closed in than a lot of Thief 2 missions are, and I think it just has that hallway feeling that a lot of OMs have from the first game.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
It's always a roof over your head,
Yeah. That's right. And then then this I usually you take the right door, right, through this little what is it, laboratory or something?
Workshop. Yep.
Workshop, right? And there's that hat you can click on. And yesterday when I replayed it, I was totally shocked, like because it makes a noise when you click on it. I didn't think of that because I thought just like you just can grab it and throw it away like the other stuff that is lying around there. The hat that's there for maintenance.
That's a fun little scare, eh?
Right, and then there's a note that gives you the hint that they found the pagan. And I think it's a cool way to do that, to combine that, inner world thing with the information that is important to you.
Yeah,
Couldn't disagree.
Yeah, I love little, especially in games like of this era of like Thief 2's era and Deus Ex and stuff like that. Like anything like little pieces of the environment that you can interact with. And like maybe they don't have a super large impact on gameplay, but they just kind of add to that sort of immersion and that kind of interactivity of the environment. I think a lot of games in this era a lot of PC games in this era, I should say, were really trying to make as much things in the environment as possible that you can interact with, and they give some sort of feedback to the player, which is what I love about this game and other games of this era.
Yeah, because I think that's because they couldn't rely on like expressive, detailed worlds or environments. They just had those shitty graphics and just like the object count, and so they really had to work around things or add different things for some atmosphere, I think.
A lot.
And the creating games wasn't that streamlined at that point, so maybe someone could get creative with that, and then they just added it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I feel like in my experience, a lot of game designers spend their like free time doing stuff like that. Like you spend your paid time doing the requirements, but then like you get a little free time, you find a spot you're personally invested in, and you start messing with it. That's where a lot of like the really cool little juice bits come from.
And that's the great thing today, that you don't have that time for free time anymore because you have the crunch time.
Yeah.
And then this time is well used. And you don't get paid either.
Yeah, anything over and above your salary is just free.
Yeah.
Built into the job.
You know, and games today are much better. In general.
Also, I was gonna say too, just adding in terms of like, you know, you were saying about how like they have to use things like in the environment because they can't kind of do things with stories because of how primitive the technology was. I think that's true. And I also think like they were trying to leverage like new technology at the time. I mean, I know that the Dark Engine wasn't really new, but you know, relatively new in terms of like 3D graphics cards, and also like the Unreal Engine was kind of new at the time. So I think also like they were trying to take advantage of like, oh, we get these new engines, we have some new technology, like we can make things that are more destructible, more things in the environment that you can interact with. And also I agree with what you said though, like it also does some heavy lifting in terms of story and expressing things to the player.
Yeah, and I think Thief in general, of course, they had a great feeling for this little environmental things, no matter if it's
sure.
readables, which we just talked about, and yeah, little things, or just show don't tell. Yeah,
100%. Yep, agreed.
And then you come to the most useless lighthouse in the world.
Do tell.
Yep, I don't. I thought about this.
Why do you hate it, Alex?
No, I don't hate it. Actually, it never occurred to me. I never thought about it until I got the comments from the Teffers, which we will read out later. But many people mentioned it, like, yeah, it's a lighthouse within a mountain circle. You know, it's like if you put like a lighthouse in the middle of a volcano. And of course, it was done because of engine limitations. I think first of all because they couldn't do like the skybox with some ocean stuff. And if you look at fan missions that do those island and pirate themed things, it's most times it looks strange, or it's not even possible to get a free look over the ocean. And I think they've done that, and for performance reasons, I would say as well. But it's really strange because what I don't like, if you get up on the lighthouse and then you look over the scenery, then there's this endless, you know, just rock. Like, how does this island look from on a map? What is it? Is it like a huge donut with a tiny hole?
I like to think that the lighthouse was originally above the ring, and then it's a sinkhole, so it fell in. And the pirates were like, how convenient, now it's a hidden tower.
Yeah, and the tower totally stayed in perfect shape.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it works. Sinkholes are great.
Yeah, and this proves that it must have been European building. Yeah, because they were built stronger. No, you know, the thing is, what were the designers thinking? I cannot imagine that this didn't occur to them. So, like, wouldn't there be a better reason? Like, I was thinking, the first thing that came to my mind is like, why didn't they build the tower higher? You know, so that the light is above the level of the walls around, but you cannot enter it. You know,
I think it is technically above the lip. I'm looking at a screenshot of it.
All right, you can. Of course, you can watch over the border of the rocks. So actually, it would make sense.
I guess it depends. It depends how thick the cliffs are on the seaside.
But
right?
then people would build it on the bigger walls because it would be higher.
I'm going with my sinkhole theory. I'm going with my sinkhole theory hard. I want to believe.
Yeah, Thief is not real. Just saying.
They accounted for everything.
Big if true.
No, but I think in general I like the lighthouse. It's like a it's a common theme. You know what a lighthouse is and does, and what it's for. So back in the days, I just liked it. It was just cool. But I always was fearing that when you go up those little stairs, which no place to hide, I was always like, oh no, is there a guard coming or not? But I think even on expert, there's just one guard walking there, right?
Yep,
I think
when
that's
you first
about
get
right.
down there. Yeah, there is only one guard.
And what I found really interesting, I think Plutonia was it on our community Discord. Plutonia, he sent a screenshot from January 7th of 2000 at 13:28. They were still deciding whether the mission should have rain or snow. And then you see this lighthouse, and there's some snow, and of course there's this old wooden house. And in the final mission, the lighthouse and the wooden house are separated by a wall. And it was just told by Plutonia that it was for performance purposes.
That's really cool.
But I think the wall is not. It fits, I would say. The whole theme. It doesn't. It's not like it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong there, in my opinion.
It's a liminal space.
But of course, now when it's like, it would be cooler if that would be just the house next to the lighthouse, which would make sense. But yeah, I think it's a good compromise. But then someone said falling snow would have been pretty, but it wouldn't fit with the summer-ish feeling of Life of the Party, Amanil said. And I would agree. But as Daniel Tron just said, because snow just looks cool, I don't know. What do you think of the whole atmosphere of the weather?
As it stands, or as it could have been?
Both.
I think that the snow could have been a good choice. I know it comes with performance costs, but it's not the city. It would be a nice way to distinguish between the Isle and the city. It's cold out here. It's worse out here. This is where pirates hang out because they don't have another choice. I think I would have preferred the snow. I like the FM as it is. It's nice and foggy and cool, but I think I would have preferred the snow.
Jake?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking before, when you asked the question, Alex, I was going to say rain, because I like the feel of the kind of, Thief has a little bit of like a noir, like a neo-noir feel sometimes with like, the dark streets and, hidden corners and stuff like that. But when Seth said that kind of maybe persuaded me a little bit, because, it is an isle and it is probably the elevation is different. And also, it is far away from the city. So having some like different weather could, like Seth said, juxtapose it from, the city and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of persuaded now that maybe I would have preferred snow, but obviously, if all things being equal. But for performance wise, I do prefer a mission that, runs smoother. So if the performance hit would have been, would have been that bad, then I would have obviously stuck with rain. But if the performance wasn't an issue, then, maybe snow.
Yeah, but I would go with since Garrett is just rowing there with his bare hands, he cannot be that far from the city. So this wouldn't explain a totally different climatic zone. Like Mission 10, Life of the Party, is totally a summer mission. Like from all the sound in the city. I think I mentioned that I really like the atmosphere there, the summer vibe. And then he goes to an island with snow. That wouldn't make sense, in my opinion.
But you could have a cool story way of explaining it, like it's an ancient pagan shrine and they summoned winter and then died, so they never unsummoned it.
Okay, that would actually kind of work in theory. Or maybe the mechanists have a machinery, that makes the whole island cold.
Yeah, they needed to keep their wheels greased,
Yeah, it obscures the island. Like the island's obscured, like with like kind of the snow and the, some of the atmosphere kind of like disguise it a little bit. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it would totally disguise an island in a summer sea, and then there suddenly is an island with snow, and
There's just a giant
Hey.
snowstorm in the middle of nowhere.
Hey, there's magic. People go through portals and all kinds of stuff. So that's nothing compared to some of the other stuff. So who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, I think regardless of whether or not it's realistic, it would be pretty funny and accomplish its goal if like people are rowing out and then they just see this giant blizzard and they're like, not going there.
back in the days, yeah, maybe. Or what would have been cool if like Garrett, you would start on ice, like frozen sea, and
Thief
then
on ice.
and then you just need to walk a bit, like Garrett would be wondering, like, hey, where's this ice coming from? It's summer, and then he has to walk over the ice until he finally meets the shore of the island.
Honestly, that sounds pretty cool. I kind of want to see that in a fan mission now.
Yep.
What if you could
now that we're
destroy the
spoiled.
ice? What if you could destroy the ice and have guards fall into the cold water?
Ooh, thief with destructible environments.
I think
That
they
would
didn't
work,
have
yeah.
the money, they didn't have the time.
No, the technology. No, I'm just pie in the sky.
you
No,
know-
that was way too early for that stuff.
Nick did that in his Malazar's tower.
Yep.
With
Yeah, the golems at the
and
end.
that must have been a hell of a job to do that.
Yep.
And then people even disliked it.
I was one of those people.
Yeah, you know what? Because you have no idea of game development, and you cannot appreciate the work that went in there.
Oh, I appreciate the work.
Yeah, I loved it. But hey, it's a different topic. We talked about this.
I know.
No, but that was still with Psychosis and Nex, right? Yeah. When we had nicked on for Malazar. So
Yes, sir.
I don't remember. I think Nex didn't like it with the cut because it looks like cut. I think we joked then, like it wouldn't have been amazing, like when the platform disappears and then the guy is just standing there for a couple of seconds in the air and just like make like huh?
Before he figures out what
Yeah,
he's falling.
like Wile E. Coyote, like
Yep.
no, yeah. So I think the snow theme in general would have been amazing, but then, as we said, that I think then there must be a twist to it, like some explanation within the lore. Like it would fit, like that the mechanists do some shady stuff and yeah.
Experiment gone wrong.
Yeah,
Even better.
Or like maybe they need to transport the Cetus Amicus, and it's easier if it's like in a block of ice. I don't know, and because then it floats, and so they can transport the prototype or whatever. Yeah, I think Looking Glass would have come up with a better idea for that, but yeah. I think we can start with some comments because I remember one comment where someone wasn't very happy with that you. Yeah, here it was Plutonia who said that. I will start with the whole comment and then we can focus on that last part. He says, Precious Cargo is the mission that suffers the most from engine limitations. They couldn't make a sea skybox, so they had to place the lighthouse in a big crater, which only begs the question why a lighthouse would be built in a low elevation as opposed to higher up on the edge of the crater. Yeah, we covered that already. Cetus Amicus is a cool set piece, and it includes a unique human enemy type that is only vulnerable to lethal attacks. I think we will discuss this later. The scuba diver mechanists are immune to blackjacking as well as knockout gas. So all those Mr. Sandman style players are out of luck. I think the biggest criticism I have for the mission is its heavy reliance on obscure secrets. The cargo locker key is hidden, the pirate treasure is hidden with no info about it, and the navigation globe is hidden with a switch in a very stupid place that nobody in their right mind would search, especially since it's pitch black there. What do you think?
I think that, well, I guess it depends on how, in terms of being at pitch black up in that attic, I think it depends on what you have your brightness at, because I remember going up there and I didn't need don't think I needed like a light to see the switch up there. And I think in terms of finding that switch to unlock the globe, like they kind of give you like sort of like an environmental tell, because you go in that room and there's the ladder, so you want to climb up in the attic, and then you go into the other room, and once you're in that other room, I think like as long as your brightness is at a sufficient level, I think you should be able to see the switch. And then of course there's the crack in the floor where you can see the door open. So I think they do a pretty good job with that secret of making it kind of like a tell. There's a ladder, there's the attic, and lead you to the next room, etc. So I'm not sure I completely agree, although if he was playing on a different monitor with a different brightness setting and he's fumbling around looking for the lever, I can certainly see why that would be frustrating.
I would agree with you, because I think that I would never have thought of a criticism about this, because I think it's obvious, because it's like, okay, there must be something in this room, because there's not much. And then there's this crack that, yeah, of course, could be just some environmental design decision, because the house is broken. But all in all, I think for me it works. So, and even if it's pitch black, I think then it's your decision to play on pitch black. But then you have to use those ugly torches if you need to. But you have the option, It's not like they totally leave you alone in pitch black if you want to play on pitch black. But then it's your decision, in my opinion, and not criticism, in my opinion, that is allowed.
I play Thief with some pretty modified video settings. Like I have really high contrast and low gamma, so
and just
like
half a screen, right?
Yeah, and I play it fairly dark and contrasty. That's how I remember it, and I don't remember having trouble with that room personally.
Yeah, so I think it's fine. But what criticism I can get is that, like, all of the goals are like secrets. And that's, yeah, I can understand.
Well, I feel like that's a great idea if you can put enough time into it, but they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money. It was towards the end.
Now that you mention it,
pre-record that as an audio cue, and Alex, you just play the whole no time stuff like that. But
we should set up a podcast soundboard.
Yeah, so that we can get a drink during that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah, we are still improving. But yeah, I think that this secret in the wooden house is not a problem. But yeah, the other ones are like a bit cheap solved, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the key. Like, I think you have the readable that tells you vaguely where the key is, but it's still, the key can definitely be hard to see, even with good video settings, because the water, and you kind of have to highlight it with your cursor. So the key is definitely a little bit hard to see. So I definitely understand that. I had a couple times when I've had trouble once I knew where it was, but I think the first time and stuff like that, I was like, I know this key's here, but like, where is it? And then the other secret as well, I think, I think it's odd to have all the main objectives be secrets, because you kind of go in and you're like, when you start the mission from when you end the mission, it's like you're in a completely different like expectation of what you're supposed to do. So.
And then there's another very important area in this mission, and this is the what do you call it? The cooling house, the freezer.
Freezer. Yep.
I just think of it as the freezer.
And this place is actually a bit heartwarming, I would say.
Yeah. Call somebody a friend.
Yeah, an old friend.
They've known each other for so long.
Eminil said that in her comment, she said that last but not least, the conversation between Garrett and Lotus almost moved me to tears. So, as we said, we are also looking for this pagan guy who's scouting the place for Victoria.
Yep, Lotus.
Lotus. And yeah, we already said that we found out that they must have found him, the mechanists, because he destroyed one of the children of Karis, and
Mhm.
so we're looking for him, and that is so first of all, getting there is a bit. I didn't like it, to be honest, because yesterday when I was replaying it, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you can maybe just jump on the roof and then there's maybe some pipes you can go through, or and enter
Yeah, like a
this.
vent.
But no, you just have to grab a simple key from some random guy. I think he's running in the house, right? In the wooden house. Yeah.
No, is it the one? Yeah, is it the one in the top of the lighthouse, or is it the one in the house?
Oh no, it's the one on the, yeah, it's the one on top, right? So yeah, that's because it's a bit strange. Like the guy with the freezer key is also on duty on the lighthouse top. It was a
Yeah,
bit.
he's the head. He's the head of the operation. It seems like, because he's like has the like the priest robes or whatever, the mage's robes.
Yeah, but he has the freezer key. Like shouldn't it be the cook? Like not the
It's
head.
also strange.
Ah, no,
It's
of
also
course.
strange.
Since they have some prisoner in there, maybe that would explain why the head of the operation would have the key. That would make sense now.
Well, it would make sense, but I was gonna say it's strange because like he's dying anyway. Like they already like he's already dead basically. Like I mean he's dying. So even if somebody gets that key and like busts him out, like he's still gonna die. So it's like they're guarding this key very very elusively. Like you're in charge. Like take this key up to the top of the lighthouse and don't let anybody have it. It's like if somebody gets in the freezer, then that guy will still die anyway. But just guard it. You know what I mean? Like,
but they don't know that because I think that Garrus and stuff are aware now that Garrett is in action and that he means that he's serious. So he can be a threat. So they don't know when they put him in there. Like maybe Garrett is already going, sneaking among them. So
I see what you mean. Like they just locked him in there, and then they're just like they don't know enough time has passed that he like is can't survive.
On the other hand, why didn't they kill him?
I think they locked him in there because they wanted to question him, but they didn't have a jail on the premises. Like that's their de facto jail, and he just happens to kill him.
Yeah, but that's stupid.
Well, I mean, they're not that smart.
But like, why would they? I understand that kind of makes sense for a minute. Then you think about it, it's like they know he's a pagan, and they know he killed a child of Karis. So it's like, what would they need to question him about? Because they already know, they're the mechanists, so they know like who the pagans are, and they know presumably who like Victoria is and stuff like that. So
yeah, but they would be asking like, who are you reporting to?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing here? First of all.
What are you doing on this wild island?
This
as a
island.
Pagan. Yeah. What are you doing?
You like winter? We'll put you in the freezer. Gotcha.
Yeah, and now the winter theme would make sense. That would be amazing if you just see that. What, you like winter? Sorry.
I was gonna say, I was thinking too, like it, and I know this is kind of like speaks to some of the comment, but like it's a form of like torture, I think, and it's kind of where this is kind of like the most character building that Garrett gets in like a long time, where he is like he says, oh, like my friend, and he's very sympathetic and empathetic to Lotus as he's dying and stuff like that. So I think, and also it's like the brutality of like the mechanists, where they're just like gonna throw this guy in a freezer and basically like torture him to death, for the most part. So I think it's about the torture, not just the questioning. But
I think that they just thought, oh yeah, it would be cool to put the guy in there, the designers. And it has an impact, actually, because when you finally get there, then you meet him, and then you get this interesting conversation, where he gives him the cock, and it's lying next to him, and he gives Garrett the information. I think they actually they are not very helpful, I would say. But
Trying to
anyways,
be.
yeah, but Garrett with a cock, he would find out anyway, and even more than little Lotus does. And maybe it would have been clever not to put the oldest pagan they have there. But is he old and has white hair, or is it from the freezing? That's what
I think it's supposed to be from the freezing.
But your hair doesn't get white if it wasn't wet.
Pagans are special, okay?
Yeah, they don't.
They're in touch with winter magic.
They don't. They don't clean themselves so much. So he has really, hair that's really wet and fat, and so yeah, it freezes, of course. No, I thought to me he always was old. Like he was a white-haired man, so you have even more sympathy for him. And the way he talks, he sounds really old. And and his skin could also be just because he's old. Maybe what? They just put him in there like some minutes ago because he was already dying, and they didn't want his old rotten pagan body to smell all over the place. So that, and he was just like, oh no, I cannot say that I'm too old for this job and that I'm just dying out of age. No, oh, Garrett is so freezing cold. He's just acting.
Kill me.
That was good.
Yeah, and Garrett's like, yeah, oh yeah, finally to kill some grandpa. But then that's the thing. Then Garrett says, yes, my friend, and then you have to do the decision. Like, do you want to kill him or not? I first just knocked him out because that's the thing I do.
Did it work, or did it kill him?
I don't know. It felt like it's the same outcome.
So I guess it doesn't matter.
What would be cool if you knock him out with a blackjack and then he would just brawl into pieces. Like because he's so frozen.
He just breaks,
shatters like ice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
it's very Mr. Freeze-esque.
Yeah, and Garrett just makes like Batman Forever, Mr. Freeze comments all the time.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I have a cold heart, but no.
Time to put you on ice. Okay, yeah.
But then Garrett says, and that's really cool. Like, Karis will pay. He really says it with an intense voice where you can. One comment said that, like, now you see that it switches. Now Garrett, now finally he takes it serious. You're like, okay, now he knows, okay, it's important. But then I find it stupid because, yeah, this pagan guy in the freezer was necessary so that Garrett finally is like, oh, I'm getting angry.
Yeah, he goes from like the mechanists are a pain in the butt to like the mechanists are a force for evil, and because now I have to actively work against them
because they killed old Lotus. Like, okay, collecting children from the streets and women and beggars and whatever, fine. I can deal with that. But Lotus, who was involved, no, not him.
Well, that's true. But you think about it, though, like everything that up to this point that he's interacted with, like all the evil has been like secondhand. Like he heard, the rust gas and eavesdropping, and he's kind of heard everything. But this is like the first time when he's like met face to face, like somebody that's been like actually like ruined by the mechanists. And like it's that thing where it's like, oh yeah, like you hear, the other people were a statistic and this is like a person, if that makes sense. Like that.
Good old Stalin.
I would totally agree with that because if I can tell you a little story from my real life, I work with it's not a nice one, but
Go for it.
I work with children, and of course, as a man in that job, you have to be careful, I would say, or very correct with everything. And of course, you read now and then, like people in this job, like teachers and stuff, that they are, child molesters now and then, and things happened in a school or in a daycare, and Of course, every time I read about this, of course, because you think like that's the worst thing that could happen to a child, but of course also to people in my job. And then, but it was always like far away. You read about it in a newspaper or on the internet or whatever. But then some years ago, a man I worked with, suddenly he was. People caught him, acting this way, doing something to a child. And, I was working with that guy, I was having a beer after work with him and stuff like that. And suddenly it got personal. Suddenly it was totally different feeling. Like, I know this person. And I think this goes along with like what you just said. And I think this observation is actually pretty true. Like, okay, now he has a personification of the evil, or
Exactly.
or of the victims, and just came to my mind that this is actually true.
That's a great story, and like not a great story, but that's an interesting
Yeah, it's
story.
amazing.
Not a morally great story, but a poignant and emotional story. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that is kind of what he has a face to put to like what's gone on. Like it's like, oh yeah, some beggars are getting kidnapped, and he's hearing that all secondhand. But yeah, like seeing it face to face, and also like there's also like before what's happened, there's sort of like a utilitarian like purpose to it. Like, oh, Karis is kidnapping people and he's making them slaves. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's free labor. I mean, that's horrible. That's a crime. But like, this guy just like was put in the freezer. Like, they didn't have to do that. They could have just like shot him with an arrow, or they could just like cut his head off and killed him instantly. But like they put him in the freezer, and it's kind of like it's like a little bit more barbaric because there's no purpose to it. It's just for evil, So I think that's another thing.
I think old Lotus wasn't even good enough to be a servant anymore. Just remember from Tomb Raider 2, like the servant she has, he wouldn't be like that.
I remember that.
And then you can, and then now the circle closes because you could put that guy in the freezer and lock the door.
That guy was Lotus.
That was Lotus, of course. Lotus the butler from the Crofts. Yeah, but now things get personal. And what I liked is at the beginning when you have the briefing or the cutscene, you always feel this. Okay, Garrett and Victoria, they don't get along really well. But here suddenly he has I would say a positive person, or that is not Victorian, or with no anti feelings.
No bias. Yep.
Yeah.
I think too that's a good point, Alex, and also like it's also kind of shows like the strength of the writing of the series, because like he takes like a long time to like warm up to her, and he's very skeptical of her, as he should be, because she took his eye in the last game. I feel like a lesser game or like a more hacky kind of writer would be like, like, oh well, I guess like we're friends now after they meet again for like the first time or whatever. But he like takes what I would say like a reasonably long time and a very extraneous like set of circumstances to be like, okay, like now we're going to let bygones be bygones, and now we're going to work together. I think that's a really credit to the strength of like the writing, is that he takes a lot to be persuaded to trust her, quote unquote.
Or maybe Garrett was just impressed by Lotus because he is such a cool guy. And
he's ice cool.
Yeah, he's cold as ice. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and then you grab the cog, and I think that next thing you can do is one of the coolest stuff. I really like that as a child, because then there's that ship wheel where you have to put in the cog, and then you turn it, and then a huge elevator inside the lighthouse goes down, and I like that. That's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Would have been even cooler if like the lighthouse turns out it's a rocket ship, like in Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah,
But no, I think this they found a down to earth, literally a down to earth solution.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know if we wanted to reference it, but one of the things kind of that we were thinking about in terms of like how this mission has some like juxtaposes with like, for example, the some other missions is that you're going down inversion of the Bone Horde. You climb up, Bone Horde you go down, I should say. Initially, the very start of the mission. So it's kind of like this mission kind of plays with sort of you go up, you go down, like sort of, after you reach the lighthouse, you go down the elevator. It's a really cool, like kind of cinematic quote unquote moment where it's like you get that wow factor of like, this whole thing is an elevator,
And what we forgot to mention, now where you just said, when the first time you go up, Garrett says the iconic Stephen Russell line, but now the other way around. It's a long way up. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally to mention. No, but I really like it when you go down. But on the other hand, I always disliked it a bit because going down an elevator, I hate elevators in Thief. And because you know, like we had that in the mission before, like, you never know who's just facing the elevator right now when you come to the final destination, and it gives you not a nice feeling, but it's still impressive. The whole theme's great.
Yeah, I agree. It's just one of those cool moments. I think that like that's something, speaking more generally, what Thief 2 kind of really excels at, especially compared to like Thief 1, is that there's usually at least one like wow moment in every mission, it seems like, where like they went like above and beyond to try to, do something that like surprises you or something that really like impresses you compared to like the first game.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of the next mission, there's a huge wow moment. That's totally amazing. I would mostly agree. I think not every mission has that. Like Framed, for example.
Yeah, some are a little bit, maybe a bit smaller. I think for Framed, it's maybe some of the secret passages and stuff like that, and the ways you can like navigate the police station. But that, I agree. It's like there's not every mission has like maybe the big like kind of pop off like wow moment, but there's maybe some more like subtle ones like, oh, that's cool. Like for Framed, for me, it's the navigating around like through the back walls of the police station and stuff like that. But I digress.
So since we are still in that area, and I think it fits right now, Eminel's comment started with Precious Cargo is one of my favorite Thief 2 levels because it features a unique setting and weather effect. And there's an air of melancholy surrounding this misty island, especially near the lighthouse. I tried to get this, I read it, and when I played it, I was like trying to get this impression, but it actually didn't hit my spot. How are you with that sentence, with the melancholy surrounding this misty island?
Well, isn't it the mission? It has a lot of fog, right? I don't think a lot of other Thief 2 missions have as much fog.
Yeah, but melancholy, my interpretation is like in Thief 3, this island, this has a lot of melancholy. How do you spell that actually?
Melancholy.
That was that has this mood, but this island, I don't know. For me, it just seems like, okay, this was a pirate's island. They left some structures, or they used some left structures, I would say. And now they are gone, and now the mechanists took this island over for their purposes. But yeah, it doesn't have that, oh, it's an old pirate island thing for me.
I think that's because you have the power of hindsight, though, right? Like you've been spoiled by Thief 3's island at this point. Whereas I think in the first time you're playing it, especially if you're playing the missions in order and like close together, it does feel more melancholy than the missions before or after it. I think when you place it like in situ in between the two missions, it feels like a very big shift in emotion.
Yeah, okay, maybe I can agree when I think of the old house next to the lighthouse. and then you get the feeling, okay, people lived here, or this was a place inhabited by whoever it was. But still, since I knew it was some pirates, it's not like I don't
You're
know.
unsympathetic to pirates, are you?
It's not. I like pirates are cool, not as cool as some other people, but Lotus and but it's like I don't have sympathy in the way like, oh no, their home is invaded by mechanists. It's not like a family lived here or a village was here. That's a different story. And then Eminel goes on like, Trail of Blood portrayed the mechanists as ruthless destroyers of which is natural and organic. Precious Cargo continues this theme to some extent, as the mechanists are transforming the environment by carving out underground caves and tunnels for their own purposes. Ron Readable mentions that they frown upon wooden structures built by pirates, considering them mockeries of construction. That is actually a cool thing. I like that, when they're like, okay,
The
yeah,
wood's unworthy.
but they're kind of practical here.
Well, I think it's interesting because it also shows there's mechanists with different priorities, right? There's a conversation where one of the guys has come from the Hammerite Order, and he's like, well, these things worked back in the day. Like, we could be pragmatic. We could just keep them. And then the other guy's like, no, what the hell are you talking about? We have to replace them with metal. It's our duty.
Yeah. And then the other is like, oh yeah, Builder, forgive me for my thoughts, right?
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
Isn't it the conversation right when you enter the caves? The second
structures.
caves, I would say. Yeah, that conversation is pretty cool, but a bit too long, in my opinion, because you have no way to go. You just have to sit there and wait in a little tiny shadow spot. I didn't like that. Is there a way I missed? I think
unless there's a window you can jump through, I think you're right. I do think it's a pretty tight squeeze.
Yeah, that's what Cletremus, for example, criticized, that it's a bit linear in parts. Would give him that.
That's for sure.
But on the other hand, yes and no, but because it has some, you're making progress. In a way, you can make progress in Thief when you play it the first time and you're scared as shit. But it's not as confusing as other versions sometimes. So I think it's a nice change, especially, and we had that before. Like after following mostly and stuff, suddenly the huge city in Life of the Party was pretty amazing. And now they go back to a more streamlined thing after this huge rooftop mission. And I think it's a interesting tone, because you have this following mostly, and then the pagan. Then you have this very straightforward pagan mission in the forests, and then you have this huge city, almost sandbox. And now it's this again.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That was one of the things I was actually thinking of. It's funny that you mentioned that when I was kind of like writing my notes and thinking about things for this episode, was the fact that, in a couple of ways, like one is like, I think this mission's reception is kind of maybe affected by the fact that it's kind of paired against Life of the Party in maybe a negative way. But when I personally think about the mission, like, I do think it's cool because you go from this big sprawling mission to a mission that, begins a little bit linear. Like, obviously Precious Cargo is pretty linear until you get to the actual base. And then the base is pretty open because you can kind of pick through either the Cetus Amicus itself or the little underwater bases. You can do those kind of in the order that you want to. And it's kind of a big square. So it's kind of like you take like a linear path, then it opens up, and then it's like kind of this big square that you can kind of do in different orders. So I totally agree. Like, I think that's one of the things that this game does overall really well in terms of the whole campaign, for the most part, is that like there's usually like a major, like a big sprawling mission, like shipping and receiving, and then you do, what is it, Framed, I think, after that, or you do Life of the Party, and then you do this mission. So I think overall, like, Thief 2 does a good job of switching it up. You get a big sprawling mission, then you get a mission that's maybe a little bit more pared back. Still lots of choice, still lots of open environments, but more pared back compared to the previous.
Yeah. I think maybe Seth, you can maybe read out Cletrema's comment
Sure.
fully.
You want top to bottom?
No, please read the last word and then go on like mission next the until Cavador find to get actually. No, please go on from the beginning.
Sure. I love Precious Cargo, and I think it's the most underrated mission in Thief 2. It rarely gets mentioned as a top mission, but I think it deserves more attention. The pros. It has great atmosphere, not only from rain and fog, but also from tight corridors and claustrophobic cave systems. It reminds me a bit of Crag's Cliff in that regard, which is always a plus, which I think aligns with what I was saying earlier about it being kind of like a Thief 1 fan mission. Difficulty. Challenging missions usually have a higher replay value for me. No surprise there. Ambience. I love the tense background music, especially in the later caves. A unique setting. No other mission is even remotely similar in design or purpose. It's also different from most fan missions I've played, Catharsis being a great exception. And Markham's pirate ship, enough said. And the cons. Sometimes it's a bit linear, loud elevators and bay doors, the fact that those don't alert guards always breaks immersion for him, and there's not much story progression since you don't actually find Cavador until the next mission. I'm not surprised that the challenging missions you like.
What? Sorry, what did you say?
Clatram has said difficulty. Challenging missions usually have a higher replay value for me, and I was just remarking that is not at all surprising.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would totally go with his maybe the linearity. Yeah, I think it's not a con in my opinion. It's like okay. But yeah, loud elevators and bay doors, the fact that these don't alert guards always breaks immersion for me. I agree, but luckily they don't. On the other hand, not much story progression since you don't actually get to find Cavador until the next mission. Yes and no. I think maybe you can say that it's not story progression, but maybe character progression.
Yep, just about to say that exactly.
And
definitely character progression.
And then what I think is like when you then find the ship, this is like whoa, this is a really cool thing. I know that I loved it back in the days, and it's still, of course, back in the days my fantasy was more making it into the Nautilus, which I used for the cover of the thing because I think it's the iconic undersea ship from Jules Verne, but I think that was the idea behind it a bit. The design speaks a bit of that language, I would say.
For sure.
But then it's actually, when I replayed it now, I was like, this really looks different and ugly. I remembered it a bit more beautiful, actually. But then it's the Dark Engine.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good point that you just brought up, saying it's a Dark Engine and just the overall impression, because like it is very like the Cetus Amicus is very like boxy, like for a submarine. Like typically you don't think of like a sub as having like, I think they did a really great job with it. I'm not trying to put them down, but like there's limitations with the engine and the triangles and stuff like that. Like it feels very boxy for a submarine, which typically doesn't have many edges or is usually pretty rounded off. But I was gonna say, like, yeah, I'm a big sucker for like submarines and like underwater missions in games when they come up. And so I wish that the sub was a little bit bigger. I don't know what you guys think. Like I wish it took up more of the mission. Like I wish it was bigger, but maybe that would also necessitate cutting something else. But I wish it was just a little bit bigger, a little bit more to explore.
I think it's a cool idea, but I think it could be really tedious, right? Because it's already pretty claustrophobic, but imagine if it was even longer.
I think
I guess
actually
it's true.
that it's, for me, this is great for the immersion because, first of all, I found it impressive that they actually, in this small thing, they were able to fit a walkable area in there, so this thing,
Yeah,
in other games, it would just be in the object, but you cannot enter it. Maybe the mission would end at the entrance of that thing, maybe, and maybe then the Cities Amicus would be a separate mission or something like that. But the thing that you can actually go in there, and walk around, and there are even guards and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. And I found it, even now, I found it impressive. And of course, they had
Tight fit.
And can you stop that? And then that was annoying.
Sorry.
Yeah. Stupid. Yeah, I lost my sentence. Sorry. Go on.
My apologies, Alex.
Then at least rescue the moment, please.
Do you want to go on to the next comment?
Yeah, please.
Sure. So it's Gamma Fight, right?
Yep.
It's been so long I had to watch Fenn's Let's Play. While not being my favorite fan mission, being that it strays from the formula I like best in Thief, I'm a sucker for the nautical type adventure, so it was enjoyable. It definitely put forth the notion of how large the world is, having islands and pirates, but also builds upon the idea that the mechanists are actually powerful. The lighthouse is very intriguing as well. There's that lighthouse again. I have to agree, though. I like that it's a nautical mission. We don't get many nautical missions in Thief.
I agree. I'm a sucker for. There's a couple other games. A couple James Bond games have some underwater missions and submarine-based missions, and I don't know. I just like submarine missions. I don't know, for some reason, like anything with a sub or anything underwater. And I think I don't know what Gamma Fight's been on Tap for Talk, so good to hear from him. But I don't know what he would say to this, but I think one of my favorite parts of like this mission and like kind of underwater missions in general is like you're in the water and like the guards are like kind of patrolling on like the, I don't know, boardwalk, pier, or whatever you want to call it, and like that feeling of like, like your head's poking out of the water and the guards are like, walking right past your head, you're right at their ankles basically. I'm particularly thinking of two like the underwater or two of the pirate bases that are like close together, and then there's like that grating up in the ceiling. That part is like really cool to me. I just thought of that when I was reading Gamma Fight's comments, so I don't know what he would say to that or what you guys think, but like that feeling of like, you're like hiding in the water almost, and the guards are like patrolling right around you.
I like the idea of it being a nautical mission, but I don't necessarily like the idea of an underwater mission. You know what I'm saying? Like,
interesting.
Especially in Thief.
Yeah, there's underwater fan missions already, and I feel like there's just such a high propensity to drown that like it's not super fun. It's not a tension I like, but I like the idea of like, say, using a waterway or a pipe even to eavesdrop on someone. Maybe it's like a sluice pipe for like carrying sewage or whatever, but not necessarily in a sewer environment.
That would have been cool, actually.
Yeah, that ankle height comment from Jake like really gave me some ideas.
What I was still wondering, because of course I don't know anything about the technical aspect, but to do this body inside water that you can actually walk dry, but the body is surrounded by water. I wonder if that's hard to do with the engine or not.
Oh, you mean when you're walking on like a surface, but you're technically in the water?
Yeah, the submarine is under the water.
Mm-hmm.
So the level you are walking inside the submarine, it's dry, but the body is surrounded by water. So I know from other game developments when they talk about stuff like that it's sometimes really hard to implement. That the water isn't there, but but as the surrounding.
Like still immersed in the water. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, that would be interesting to see if they had to, find a way around that. Because you're right. Because you are technically, you're in the sub, which is underwater. So how would that affect like the physics of it?
I think the reason Thief can do it is because it still uses BSP. So water is a volume, and then you can theoretically cut parts of that volume away. You know what I'm saying? So like they could do a level that is it's just binary, right? It's entirely water. It's a volume filled with water. Then they carve out the parts that they don't want to be filled with water. So theoretically, you could do something like Bioshock, but in Thief, and have it actually be underwater.
Yeah. So the water is just like a body where they define limits and
yeah, exactly.
I was thinking that, but still, I still think it's pretty great, like having this. And what I wanted to say is that I actually like the size of the whole thing because it's believable and realistic, in my opinion. But still impressive. Like, and the whole thing is like it's really tight. It actually shows for me like, okay, like the one comment just said, like they are really powerful, but still, this is a totally new thing, and it's very advanced, of course, but I think it has a lot of compromises. So I think this shows, in my opinion. Of course, I think it was because of engine limitation at the end, but and they didn't have time and money and blah. But I think that in general, it's a believable vehicle for that purpose.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think like making the sub bigger would be like would kind of cut into sort of like the believability. I mean, I'm very selfish. I just want more and more submarine. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't really make much sense, I guess, because like a submarine has to be designed to be like dynamically kind of a tight fit so that it can withstand the pressures of being underwater. But
on the other hand, sorry to interrupt, but on the
No,
other
you
hand, I could imagine like it could also been great, like of course, because the mechanist Karras is so out of his mind, and and there are other things that are not possible or are stupid, like robots on legs. But like
He's a megalomaniac.
if you would end the mission at the harbor maybe and would just see a part of that, and then it's a really, really, really huge ship in the next mission, that you walk on, a really huge thing. That could have been also pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like a. So I guess what maybe to clarify. So you mean like if you ended like this mission, like kind of before you get to the sub, and then you do like a mission or have a part where you're just on the sub and it's like a much bigger environment, kind of like how we were discussing when we did Life of the Party about like if we broke it off into 2 missions. Is that what you mean, or I'm not, okay?
Yeah,
I think that's how Deus Ex did the same thing. Deus Ex had a mission where you're on a ship, and they had like a break into a ship base, and the ship is its own separate level. You're like on deck, and then you go below decks, and below decks is an entirely different loading area.
Thief 3 also had that.
Yeah, it's an efficient way to do it, right?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think it's how they did it here is really amazing, and I think this is a moment that totally stands out. And I think this mission has some of those moments actually. I think they did a great job there. At the beginning with the drill, and then the lighthouse, and the freezer with Lotus, and then the elevator down, and then this. But yeah, I think it's like what you want to do. With engine limitations, of course, you cannot put a real huge ship in there. So they did it this way, and I think it works really well. And on the other hand, I'm actually happy that there's not a submarine mission, because I remember fan missions that are like huge. Was it a spaceship? I think it was a spaceship, and it was big, but still totally, a tight fit. Everything was so tight, and there was not much space to hide and run, and it was not fun. I think
that's the airship, right?
Nah, I think it was I don't know. It was a fan mission, which was really annoying. It took a lot of System Shock textures and stuff, and models, and I didn't like it, actually. Then you have to have a System Shock big, like, different levels are different areas of the ship. But I think, it's good the way they did it. And then we find out that Cavador isn't there. And this is, I don't know, I think it's cool, actually, that they extend this a bit. But
do you? Because the next level's your favorite.
At that, of course, I'm, putting myself into the situation of the player that plays this for the first time and gets a really melancholy feeling from the lighthouse, and because he doesn't know that in Thief 3 there's another island. So yeah, he plays it the first time, or she, and of course you don't know where it leads you actually, because when I played it back in the days, I thought, oh, we must get to a really cool facility now. And now
The coolest.
now we should stop the podcast and like to be continued.
Just like the mission, just cut it off.
Yeah, big disappointment there, but we will get to that in some years. No, yeah, I think it's not bad actually. Of course, like Claterma said, like there's not much progress mission wise, but it's a cool Segway mission. For a Segway mission, it's really great.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean though when we were saying, Alex, like if you don't consider the next mission, because if you don't know it's coming up, I do think it is like kind of it's a cool twist, it's a cool cliffhanger. Obviously, we have our opinions of the next mission, but just putting that out of your mind, like it is kind of like a cool like kind of mystery. It's like, okay, like he's not here. Like, I'm gonna go find him. Now I'm gonna go somewhere else. And what's that place gonna be like? It's like a good like breadcrumb trail, I think.
Yeah, and imagining like you just go on this ship and lock yourself into this chamber, like just with some centimeters thick walls between you and your enemies, and you don't know where you're going, and that's really, really cool. But yeah, until you know where you went.
What if Garrett he just woke up and like the mechanics like knew he was in there, like Garrett like stowed away in the cargo bay, and he's like opens the door and they just unload on him with like crossbows or something like that. They just like they know he's in there, like why is he sleeping in there? But yeah, no, I agree. Like you don't know.
Imagine Garrett would be snoring
really loud. That's how they find out he's in there. They're like walking past and they're like the cargo is snoring.
the locked cargo where we couldn't find the key for. Yeah, but imagine how many days, actually, the Lost City was accessible from nearby the city, right? In the first game.
Yep. Yeah, but the thing is,
what is
the tunnel?
That's what I was thinking of. Like, okay, Garrett can walk there, but they need to have a ship on an island out in the freezing sea. So and then from there they get to the Lost City, like
Like how are they getting in there? Like how does it make sense?
Garrett just never revealed that there's an entrance in the city to anyone, right? So they don't know how close it is, so they're taking the underwater tunnel.
Yeah, but this I don't know. It's the outcome of where you're going is, in my opinion, pretty stupid.
I don't know. See, as a Thief 1 lover and a guy who didn't hate the Lost City, I was excited to get to go back. I was like, oh, it's a throwback mission. And I was so happy.
Yeah, throwback mission would be great if it would be like the destroyed building of Constantine or something like that. That is a good theme for a throwback mission. But going back to the worst place in Thief history.
No, best level ever.
You're close to getting fired, I tell you. That's
I'm sure.
Strike number 2 for today. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. It's in my opinion, it's like, really, guys, were you so proud of that ugly place that we have to revisit it? I think they really ran out of ideas. I mean, after that, you visit the same place 2 times.
Yeah.
They were we need 15 missions, so now make it happen.
Yeah.
They wanted to raid some tombs.
And then they didn't have the time and not the money. And
yeah, but but no, I agree, and it's like it's kind of confusing too because you think about it. Like, I think doesn't Thief the Dark Project have like 12 missions and Gold adds 3, so that brings it to 15. Like they wanted to hit, I think, 15 from the onset for Thief 2 before they even got to Thief Gold, which obviously never happened. But like if you think about it, like they could have, if they would have cut 3 missions from the game, they still would have been equal to the Dark Project. So
I think Dark Project has 13 missions, doesn't it? Lucky 13?
Is it 13? I thought it had 12.
12 and 3 extra missions in the Gold. And I think they were like, okay, now we have Thief Gold. It had 15 missions now. So the media will be like, yeah, Thief 2 is great, but it has less missions than,
Yep. Yeah, optically it does look like, even though they're not cutting content, or even though it's not technically like lesser content, it does seem like from like a media standpoint, like you said, they're like the media, the gaming magazines and websites at the time would be like, oh, there's less missions in this game than Thief Gold, even though Thief Gold's free release, but we know that people don't always pay attention to context. But
But one question, do you guys know if this is like a reused, slightly changed part of the Lost City map?
oh yeah, they edited it and changed it, because you can see a couple places, you can see like where it was in the, like, because I think the one with like there's like some railroad track, I think like that's the one where you have to like hop across the roofs,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
blended.
mistaken. Yeah, so yeah, it's like it's blended with, like, the old is blended with the new. So that's what I was gonna say. Like, I don't want to go too much into it, but I think that the one saving grace, if there is any, for the next one is that blended.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert, by the way. The thing is,
Many people haven't played it.
I just tried to get Cavador in the next. Oh no, let's not. I'm not going into that. We will discuss this, but because I played it yesterday already. Yeah, I think the last really interesting place we didn't talk about is the pirates treasure place,
Markham Ship.
which is really really cool. First of all, there's this dead scuba diver, mecha diver. And then that's I wanted to mention that. Why is this guy on the ship? I mean, the Cetus Amicus. Why is he walking around in this full breathing monture? Why?
It's getting practice.
It would have been cool if they would be underwater, like in a fan mission did that once, where they were like underwater walking. This would make sense, but this is like, this must be really hard to breathe.
I have a theory.
No, tell me. I want to know this.
Maybe the suits are pressurized for deep sea diving, so when they come back up, if they depressurize the suit too fast, they get the bends. So while the suit slowly depressurizes, they walk the deck.
So he's just waiting, like
he's bored.
That would be actually a logical interpretation. Yeah, I would agree.
Just all these bored mechanists after a trip, just walking around depressurizing.
But wouldn't they have like a facility for that?
I guess, but isn't it more fun to think about them bored, trapped in a suit, walking back and forth, and then Garrett knocks them over the head?
And it doesn't work?
So they're twice as mad.
Or dead.
Nice excuse to make them explosively decompressurize.
That would be cool if there would be a little switch you can, click, behind them. Then they would be.
See, some future studios should just hire us as their idea guys.
They listen to us or they won't.
Be like, more exploding mechanists.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, like, we've mentioned a lot in this episode, actually, just like kind of the realism versus kind of like the gamification or the gamey elements. Like, it's really cool from I think a game standpoint to have like an enemy where, you're gonna, Garrett's like walking up to him all like smug and confident, like, I'm gonna knock this guy out, like Mr. Sandman, like the commenter mentioned. It's like, and then you just hear it, and then you just hear the clank off the helmet if you don't realize that you can't do that. And it's like that moment where you're like, oh.
I tried a gas arrow, to be honest, and when in the moment I shot it, I was like, oh man, I'm stupid.
But somebody, I think we were mentioning earlier, somebody mentioned the only way is to kill him, but you can't kill him because this mission, I should say, objective is don't kill any mechanists. They change it from don't kill any people because you have to kill Lotus, but is don't kill any mechanists. So if you're playing on expert, like, there is no way to take him out because you can't kill him with your sword, right? Am I wrong?
That's actually, I didn't try to kill him because I just avoided him, like I usually do, the ghoster I am. But that's actually true.
Yeah, I was
Must
thinking
be
about
that
that
way.
because I didn't even know you could. Whoever left that comment or whoever said that that's the first time I ever realized that you can lethally take him out. I didn't even know that. So,
This person is just, not a skilled gamer like we are, so he plays on a lower difficulty. I would never do that, but it's fine. To make it clear, I normally play on normal difficulty just for those podcasts. I try to beat it on expert. Yeah, but on this difficulty, yeah, you cannot take them out. Actually, you have to get around. But I think it's if you know where you have to go, it's not so hard.
Yeah, plus you can go under the water and get into the sub that way, so you don't even have to go topside if you don't want to.
But we've been at the pirate ship. I really like then you see the dead pirate. Is it him? I think, or
I think it's implied to be.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked is that one readable you find where it says that the men want to name the island after you, Captain. Which and then there is that I'm sorry that I'm jumping here, but now it comes to my mind. And what I also really liked was the readable that says, gives those rules. And we know that, or at least I think I know that in the real Caribbean Pirates era, they also had those rules, those pirate rules.
Yeah.
And I liked
Dead by 8.
That liked this. That was really cool. And then I think that Markham, how he treated his people, like from the cuts they get from the loot, he was pretty fair. I don't know the exact numbers now, but I think he was like, okay, he gets like 1.5 and the others lower get 1.25 or something like that, So he was good to his people, is my impression, at least from the readables I got.
I mean, you have to be if you're depending on them for your life, right?
Yes, but it shows that not everybody has to be an asshole. Or like pirates are seen as those criminals, and they are, of course. But among them, there's more humanity. Maybe it's a nice contrast to the mechanists, in my opinion, that try to act like the saviors of humanity or the improvers of life, but actually they are really, really bad. And
That's a good point.
Here are bad people that, of course, do bad things, but just they, in comparison, they just rob some people, but they are not as bad in their mind, in their heart. That's my little observation I just made now. Yeah, but I think it's more interpretation than it actually was. But maybe, who knows?
You know what I was thinking of, actually, just going off of, we were talking about sort of like the Pirates Creed or whatever. I was thinking about, I think it's Song of the Caverns, where you can find that sort of like thieves dedication or whatever, where it's like, we are thieves, like we don't live by the laws of society. And it's kind of like, has that sort of, much like in this mission with the pirate ship, it has that kind of like Robin Hood slant, you know what I mean? Where it's like kind of portraying kind of outlaws and, criminals, like the other side of it, where they're kind of fighting back against, in their mind anyway, maybe not in objective reality, but they're fighting back against what they see as like a unjust like system. So it kind of reminds me of that. I think it's from Song of the Caverns, I want to say, which also has underwater parts to it. There's like a thieves thing.
I agree. And I can then see the righteous minds of the Looking Glass rebels. And I think it's just a projection of Looking Glass working in this industry that changed. And the whole mechanist thing is, an homage or, just a segue to to point out their view on the whole industry.
Yeah, the industry or the mechanists who are kind of just homogenizing and manufacturing everything in like a cold steel way, and like the
publishers. So the mechanists are the publishers, actually. And then that's how it is. And they foresaw loot boxes which is like the rust gas, and then the and NFTs and stuff. They just saw that all, and because it's getting into the people's houses and then it destroys them.
This is all very deep. Thief is the deepest game for sure.
Deep. That's Thief. So we have 2 comments left. I think we didn't read out. One was by T2OM11 Relayer. Jake, do you want to go on with that one?
Sure. T2OM11 Relayer says, I enjoy this mission. It comes across like a combination of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Goonies, and Austin Powers. I know exactly what you're talking about for the Austin Powers reference. Its uniqueness really stands out and makes it a breath of fresh air. There's some nice platforming areas, though I think there was a bit of a missed opportunity regarding the long way up portion. I think letting the player figure out where to shoot the vine arrows to find their own way up would have been a bit more rewarding. Not sure why they didn't do that. This is one of the few Thief levels, original mission and fan mission, where I use moss arrows. Thank goodness the mechanists decided to install the slit-proof carpeting to avoid walking on the metal floors at many of the areas. Makes it a lot more manageable for the player to traverse. I think that this mission inspired quite a bit few fan missions over the years. It does a nice job telling its story through both its layout and its readables.
Please explain the Austin Powers, because I would never watch those movies.
You've never seen Austin Powers? I think it's the 3rd movie. There's like a significant portion of like the final act of
Is it the one with Beyonce?
It is, yeah. It's the one with Beyonce.
The only thing I know.
It's the name. Obviously, the name is different. Movies change their titles in different countries, but in America, it's Austin Powers in Coldmember, I think. But basically, the climax of the film takes place in a submarine, and there's actually sneaking. Obviously, the movie is a absurd, like silly comedy, but there's like sneaking like around in the submarine. So I kind of see what he means by that. I saw that movie. Yep, and then. The submarine, though, they missed an opportunity, though, because the submarine in Austin Powers looks like the villain, where they could have made the Cetus Amicus look like Karis. That would have been absurd.
It would have been kind of funny.
That would have been funny, but yeah, no. So I immediately got that reference because I saw that movie as a wee lad. So,
but the 3rd movie, didn't it come out after Thief 2?
It did, yeah. So yeah, actually, you're right, yeah, because the first 2 movies would have been before Thief 2. Now they think about it, and the 3rd movie would have been after Thief 2.
See, so Austin Powers was riffing on Thief.
Yeah.
I'm just making that because, like, I know Destiny's Child was successful at the early 2000s. So
yeah, you're
Beyonce right. Wasn't... she wouldn't have been in a late 90s movie. So that's...
I'm too young for that. Yep.
Yeah, that they didn't use that opportunity to make this joke. Yeah, what a shame.
That's it's an interesting connection they made. But yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is another good one too. I'd be interested to see the designer.
But that is obvious. That is obvious that it's there's some reference. The ship looks a bit like it, and but I know the Goonies, but I don't. What is the reference or the connection?
The pirate ship. The pirate ship is very Goonies.
Of course.
With the dead pirate.
Yeah, and I see. But the rest, I would agree, especially to why they didn't choose that you could rope up yourself with the arrows. I think that would actually, first of all, that would have been something you have to figure out because you would see the elevator, like the obvious way. And then it would be, you would feel clever again, like this. Oh yeah, wait, I'm the thief, and I have those arrows, so I will use them.
Can I throw in a game design theory?
Of course.
My game designer theory is that since they were at the end and they didn't have a lot of time and they didn't have a lot of money, they were blocking out the level. They were gray boxing it. And one of the designers probably put those vines in as a test for where rope arrows would go. And then since it was at the end and they didn't have a lot of time and they didn't have a lot of money, they just left it in.
And on the other hand, those are rocks. So they had to, would have need to find a way, like, why is there metal or wood where you could rope
Well,
or
the
vine
wood
up?
the wood could have been supporting beams. So if you're gray boxing a level and you're throwing in ropes and you're like, oh, this is the rope distance, you're like measuring distance, you know where you have to put the wood beams, and then you can design a frame. But
Oh, they could have made like some roots, like, like a big tree arms, that are out of wood.
yeah,
Because they couldn't have been like, oh, now it works with the arrows in the stone or whatever. It's clay. They stick there. No, this would be confusing to the player. And it's not self-explaining. But yeah, maybe they were like, this is here. It makes sense that there are some natural vines hanging from there. I don't know.
I
could
think
be.
I think from a design standpoint too, and I know the responses can be, "Oh, just load the game," but like maybe they didn't want to avoid like having the player be in an unwinnable situation if you did miss all your vine arrows. Because I mean, for the most part, like with vine arrows and rope arrows, like it's usually optional, and there's usually another way around. But since you have to climb, I guess there is the elevator, so that goes. I just killed my own theory mid progress, but like maybe they didn't want people to just like shoot vine arrows and miss and be frustrated. But I guess you could always just be like, oh well, there's the elevator, so tough luck, take the elevator. But
Yeah,
yeah, that was the first that came to mind. But
I think everything would make sense that we just interpreted that. So yeah, maybe we don't know, but who knows? Maybe one day we can ask someone. I don't know. I think. Shane Mullen is left. Last but not least, Shane Mullen said, I enjoyed this mission a lot. Good mission, great design. The big ugly iron fish was great. I like that. But a little cramped up inside. Lotus was definitely the highlight of the mission. That was special touch. Yes, my friend Karis will be stopped.
What the?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we discussed all of that. But thanks to everybody for the comments. And I think, I don't know, is there anything we need to discuss here that we forgot?
I mean, I think we've covered everything pretty good. I think
It's not a long mission.
yeah, it's pretty straightforward for the most part. I mean, even though there's the secrets, but for the most part, in terms of like the design, and we were talking about just like the different things with the engine, there's no kind of crazy like, oh, how'd they do that really things. There's a few cool things I think with the water, but yeah, pretty straightforward for the most part.
One thing that just comes to my mind is that area with I think it's 2 wooden houses in the underground area. It's interesting to see mechanists in such an environment.
Definitely a chance to do crossover stuff, right?
What do you mean?
Well, like, we're used to seeing the mechanists in like unnatural environments, in like Art Deco style buildings. So this is like the dev's chance to mix and match the mechanists with something you wouldn't normally see them in.
Yeah, I'm just distracted by the picture of the submarine from Mini.
Dr. Evil's submarine.
Yeah, Dr. Evil. I think I have to redo the cover with a Karis face on it.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was Precious Cargo. And yeah, as I said, thanks for the guys that were following us on the live stream. Thanks for everybody for listening. Thank you guys for being here. And yeah, next time it is, what's the name of the next mission?
Kidnap,
right. Shithab.
I can't wait.
As I said, I replayed it yesterday, but of course I have to replay it more detailed for the podcast where we discussed this.
Which you're very excited for.
Nah, I hope that our special guests we have planned are available very early the next time. So
Ooh.
because after that it's masks. No, it's casing the joint, masks, and I think then we are at the finale, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sabotage.
Damn. Yeah, and then we will end the podcast because there's nothing to talk about anymore.
Ever again.
We finished Thief 2
That's the last game in the series.
and the first. That's the game. That's why the podcast exists. You know, we don't discuss other games. So yeah, thanks for listening, Teffers, and bye. You guys, as always, you may be polite and say bye too.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Rude Americans.
No, I was waiting for you.